What's going on, everybody? Good afternoon. We've got some Seattle Seahawk breaking news here. That's right, we got some breaking news. We have a trade, and it's a pretty small trade. It's not a big impact, but it is a clear effect trade from the cause signing of Connor Williams. Connor Williams trade signing happens, so this trade happens in response to it. The Seahawks are trading one of their backup centers, Nick Harris, who they just signed a few months ago in the offseason, to the Cleveland Browns. So Nick Harris and a 2026 seventh round pick goes to the Browns, and they get back a 2026 sixth round pick from the Browns. So to be very clear here, this does not affect next year's draft. This affects the draft after it. So this is pretty far out in the future, but it is technically a little bit of an asset gain because clearly with Nick Harris being the third center in all likelihood behind Oluwatimi and now Connor Williams, he was unlikely to make the team and we were just going to let him go, maybe put him back on the practice squad, but we were going to not have him anyway. So now we get to have a little bit of an asset back. Now, Nick Harris did start yesterday against the Chargers, but I think that Oluwatimi is the more interesting of the two players, even if technically Nick Harris might be a little bit ahead of him because Oluwatimi is in his second year in the NFL. Nick Harris has been in the league for several years now, so there's a sense that Oluwatimi could get a little bit better, whereas Nick Harris is kind of capped out because he's been in the league for a minute now, and he goes back to a team that he's been on previously. Nick Harris was a Brown for, I want to say, the last 4 years or something like that. So they pick him up, and the reason why they're doing this is because they suddenly find themselves in need of a backup center. Corbin Smith over here speculates that Cleveland called John Schneider mid-game yesterday to try to trade for Nick Harris. So John Schneider called down to Grubb and told him to take Harris out of the game because Harris played 12 snaps and then was pulled out, which was considered to be a little bit strange because 12 snaps is not much of a sample size. But it seems like they were aware of the fact that they were going to trade him mid-game and didn't want him to get hurt. So things happen pretty quickly. By the way, if you want to know why Cleveland needed a center, it's because their backup center behind Ethan Posick, Luke Whippler, fractured his ankle and is going to need surgery. So Harris, a little bit of experience playing center over there, and it also helps us, the Seahawks, get that roster spot free without just giving up for nothing. So it seems pretty good to me. I know it's not a big asset. I know it's not a big deal. It's going to be a long time before we see this pick get utilized. And ultimately, you're talking about moving up probably like, 40, 45 spots at the very back end of the draft. So that's only going to be a little exciting. But I think that there is something to be said when the alternative was cutting him and getting nothing, because it's not like anybody's going to give him some sort of big contract. And even if they did, as we cut him, it's not like we get a compensatory pick. So getting a little something out of this situation where Connor Williams was obviously going to push somebody out is always good. So that's the trade part of it. We're not doing jumping jacks about going from a seventh to a sixth in more than a year and a half. But let's talk about the money a little bit here. So Nick Harris, still listed as a Seahawk over here on OTC, by the way, because the trade literally just happened like less than half an hour ago. The contract that they put out here would be a signing bonus of $1 million, and you had a base salary of a little more than $1 million, and then you had per game roster bonus adding up to about $340,000. So, according to OTC, that means the dead money on a trade of Nick Harris, because it is now post June 1st, obviously, it's August. You eat $1 million dead, and you save 1.4 million approximately. I've seen a couple people on X speculate that we only saved like 1 million. There might be some aspect of this where we're agreeing to pay a little bit of his base salary in the trade in order to get that slightly better pick. I guess that's possible. I don't really know why. It's not like we got a great asset back. But according to OTC, just looking at a trade on the surface, you're saving about $1.4 million. So that's going to pay for about half of your practice squad. That's going to pay for maybe about half of your trade buffer. Depends on how you want to look at it. But it's better than having to do it without getting anything, because if you cut him, it's the same thing, right? It's the exact same savings. It's just you don't get the slight the slight bump from the trade with the pick. All right, so yeah, Nick Harris, we hardly knew ye, although we knew you a little bit better than you would expect because you were a Washington Husky for several years. You did make an all Pac-12 team at one point, so we have fond memories of Nick Harris in some ways around here, but yeah, we hardly knew him as a Seahawk. So good luck over there. Probably going to get to play a little bit behind Ethan Posick. And yeah, we're just moving along here, saving about 1.4 million in theory. And there you go. See you guys later. Go Hawks.